So I met you, I guess, back in 2013, 2014 for the first time, was in one of the young adults life group, right?
That's right.
I've never heard your life story, never had a chance to actually hear from you. So maybe today we'll be able to converse a little bit more and let us understand a bit more about your entire life journey from, those days when you first started till now, you've become a young adult, a leader, and then how your entire journey has. How do you see life when you were still a youth, and what were your aspirations at the point in time?
I never really had like a specific aspiration. A lot of people tend to have like, I want to become a doctor, I want to become a lawyer, like they already know what they want, but I really don't really had an idea of how I wanted to, progress in my career. So every day was like a step at a time for me.
Okay.
I tend to like just plan, I don't plan too far ahead. I just take my actions as the day goes by, as every single day passes. Until, of course, growing up, there was a slight hint of an aspiration of wanting to become a chemical engineer.
Okay.
Yeah, but God had greater plans because despite me trying my very best to go through like chemistry and physics without biology, I ended up being a pharmacist.
As you journey from coming out, having the aspiration eventually defined for you to be a pharmacist, your entire journey as an adult, we understand that life gets fuller and it's clearer every day. But did you have any kind of like epiphany moments as well as you were going through your journey in that sense?
Just a brief background.
Sure.
So I did my pharmacy degree in Penang, right? So going through that, the whole experience, first, before leaving for Pahang and Penang, where I did my pre-U and my university life, I was actually already an assistant life group leader with Calvary Youth at that time. Then after that, leaving, the whole sense of leaving home, a strange environment,
Freedom.
Freedom in that sense, yeah. Like totally different friends, you're surrounded by strangers, no one knows who you are and no such background. And I think there's no form of any accountability of any sort. You're just starting life afresh and anew, right?
Yeah. So
that sort of, how you like to put it, freedom has kind of led to a couple of bad decisions I made for my own life, I would say. While studying for my degree, I chose to, instead of serve God and actively go to church, I used my musical talents instead to gain jobs outside.
Okay.
Like go for gigs, music, shows, and stuff like that, which kind of, if you go for a show at night, it kind of ends late, like 1, 2 a.m. and then it's on a Saturday night. And I ended up skipping church many times because I overslept.
Right.
And that slowly became a habit. And as it becomes a habit, then that whole spiritual aspect of my life started to take a back seat. I wasn't prioritizing that anymore. And it was evident in the choices I made.
Right.
Because I also used to be, if my friends were here, they would testify that I'm Ponting King. In my uni, I used to skip class quite a bit.
Okay.
On top of that, I got myself into 2 non-Christian relationships along the way.
Right.
And honestly, throughout this whole period of time, there wasn't any epiphany moment. And I didn't really think too much of the consequence. As you were a young person growing up, sometimes you think in a very naive sense. Like, okay, I'm in a non-Christian relationship. Don't worry, one day I'm going to make sure she's a Christian. Like
evangelistic relationship.
Correct. Okay. So it's a very ideal situation, but little did I know, come on, Andrew, let's be real. Like, you're living that sort of lifestyle. How is it possible that your testimony can be used to bring someone to Christ when you are not being such a good testimony yourself and you are living in sin? After my 4 years in Penang, and that was when I met you, and that was when the whole awaiting posting and again what my job would bring forth later on. And I guess from that moment, the epiphany moment started.
Right.
Coming back again, you sort of disconnect yourself from your past life.
Right.
Now you're back in KL,
right.
And then you have eyes on you, parents' eyes on you, friends' eyes on you. Everyone's just looking at you, and what do you do on Sunday then? You can't do anything but go to church, right? So I guess that was the start of how God drew me back. Progressively coming back and repenting from my past life. So I had to first break off or sever whatever ties I had that were not God glorifying.
Right.
And then slowly, as I observed and mingled again with friends who were in leadership positions, who were serving actively, I think that influence drew me back to want to start serving again.
Right.
And again, being in the house of the Lord every Sunday, I think that really helps because it allows the presence of the Lord to be so closely felt. And through that, God spoke to me week after week. So there was a lot of breaking of bondages, a lot of just repenting before the Lord, my past life and my desire to now dedicate my life to serve Him again.
Yeah.
It was a journey that I was consistently broken down over and over again.
Right.
It wasn't easy to go through that period,
Okay.
but I felt it was necessary. I think that was my turning point that led me back to where I desire to serve today.
Right.
I think that your influences, who you decide to befriend, who you decide to hang out the most with, who you bounce your thoughts off, these are vital people in your spiritual development, and not just spiritual, in terms of your life decisions as well.
What actually drew you to the point whereby you felt that uneasiness, you felt that, it is time for me to come back to God?
Gotta be very honest with you, John, I've never felt that way until I came back to KL.
Okay.
Like, I was so far down because I spent 4 years in Penang, and every year, over year, things just become very numb.
Okay.
Like this spiritual sense, I think I stopped even hearing from God, or the desire to pray or read His Word wasn't even there at all. When I first came back and I had to go to church, it was more like a chore. I was more concerned what others would see of me, because they know I'm back, and this guy was a youth leader prior to coming back to church this time.
I think from your short sharing just now, I think where it's very significant is that God has never given up on you. And once you came back home, the community support that really re-enlightened back, the days of your responsibility, the days of your ministry draw you a bit more into searching for Him again, right?
Yeah.
And you're like fully fired in serving ministry. I see you in the worship team, I see you in the young adults, the youth those days. Were there moments whereby you really struggle in terms of managing, your sacrifices? Because starting off young pharmacist in HKL, I remember hearing your hours were crazy, it was just round the clock. And yet, Sunday in, out, I see you serving here and there. Was it very difficult to make those choices? Were there moments, and how do you actually get through it at the end of the day?
It was tiring. But again, every time when that human side of me, the flesh is weak sometimes, right? But the spirit is willing. I keep telling my flesh, hey, remember the grace of the Lord upon your life and how He has paved your journey, and His grace has always been sufficient. There's no way around it, because physically you already reached your limit.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times I honestly say I would like to call it quits. I mean, there was a time where it was not just youth and life group. There was also productions going in full swing.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess you know how it goes.
I've seen you, yes. I've seen too many times.
So it was very hectic. It was a 7-day sort of routine, and not just during the day, at night as well.
Yeah.
There were points where I really reached my peak, where I lost totally all form of energy, and I was so tired. In fact, on the verge of burnout, I would say. But again, not forgetting who God is and who I serve, and His plan for my life, reminding myself consistently of those things, the purpose that He has for me, the desire He has placed in me. In fact, I think this whole thing started off from a point whereby how I ended up in youth is because of a particular young person who came to me.
Right.
Yeah, I think that part was very important, because he came to me for struggles similar to what I shared in Penang. And I had that opportunity to turn whatever I went through into a testimony.
Right.
And I guess that triggered a start for me to serve fervently, reminding myself that there are many out there like this young man who needs to hear they're not alone in these struggles. And I guess that part of me has driven me and motivated me to realize that, hey, your ministry is not just a one-off thing. There are many young people who will come by who will need similar encouragement, support, and hence that keeps me going in that sense, despite the fatigue.
If there is something or one thing significant, or maybe more than one thing significant you want to share about how this entire journey has molded you, and how you would have reinterpreted life versus from the day you went to Penang to where you are now today.
I guess that along the way, I had to take, firstly, a couple of hard knocks on my character. I mean, again, the YOLO spirit, some part of that still resides in me, after all. But I think the most significant thing would be, I used to be a very angry person. So in my previous relationships, I used to always want my way, and I would be very angry in trying to get it. So I was very impulsive. And I think that part of me started to slowly mold into something a bit more mellow. Like I become a bit more patient. on top of that, like I said, I was very short-sighted,
Yeah.
living life a day at a time. At least now with the whole awareness that whatever you do is because of God's grace upon your life, you are enabled to do it,
Yeah.
and you are serving the King of Kings. And at that sort of awareness comes along with the awareness of living in the light of eternity, coming from a place of darkness in that sense,
Yeah.
and now having an opportunity to not just come out again into the light, but also to be able to impact lives for God. That sort of changes everything I do today.
Right.
Every action I do, everything I say
Yeah.
has to be one that reflects the testimony that God has given to me and the grace He has given to me. So I think that sort of changed everything, because now whatever plans I make for the future, whatever plans I, when it comes to ministry, for my life group, for the Calvary Youth Fellowship, whatever I'm leading or coordinating along with Pastor Mike as our youth pastor, it comes with that awareness, but living in the light of eternity, knowing that one day what we do is worth it, and we are all headed to the same direction and the same destination, really changes your perspective in many ways.
I'll conclude it this way, and then you tell me if I conclude correctly. Community is very important, right? Being surrounded by your spiritual leaders, your spiritual supporters, your friends who hold you close, being in alignment with God is very important. The second thing is, my takeaway from what you just shared is that whilst the distraction out there was temporal, it was very draining, and there was a void. And that's why when you came back to KL after your degree, and you found the church community again, there was something that filled that void again and drove your passion back for God. And I think the third thing is, while you mentioned YOLO all the time, you're living life once, I start to take away that while you live life once, you live life once in surrender for the eternity that you're serving at the end of the day. And that brought about the encapsulating purpose of our lives at the end of the day here on earth, as I will put it. Yeah.
That's totally right. Exactly the point that I was bringing across. So thank you so much, John.
Right, no problem, Andrew.